Are you ready for the weekend yet? We have events, news, and a guest for you to enjoy this Lake Life weekend. Hello and welcome to another episode of Lake Life Weekend Podcast. I'm Dirk, I'm your host, and it is weekend 32 approaching. We have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Karen Terry from the University of Minnesota Extension, and she will speak about their event in Detroit Lakes, Aqua, Chautauqua, next week, August 15, at Dunton Locks, 5 to 8 p.m., and you will learn all about that in our interview part. I don't want to miss to point out this weekend, August 9th, 10th, and 11th, there is Looney Days in Vegas. We had the program a couple weeks back, and I'm very excited. There's so much program that I cannot even name it all. It's actually 2 pages full of program. I do want to point out that we have Dixie at the Beach, like a music event. We have a triathlon. We have a wiener dog race, beanbag tournament, street dance, and we have a street fair. Of course, we host our annual sandcastle contest at the beach on Saturday afternoon. So please come with your shovel and bucket to participate and win prizes from us, from Lake Life Weekend. So come by to the beach and sign up. It's free. Just come, attend, have fun, build a beautiful sandcastle and win prizes. Also meet us downtown Saturday. We have a booth, and you can meet us. We published a brand new road trip map, which you can pick up. It's free. We ran out our summer issue, our magazine, so stay tuned for the fall issue coming in September. We're working hard on that. One little thing I want to share is our online event map is still under production. We have a beta version. I'm sure you tried it out. lakelifeweekend.com will guide you to our event map. It's populating, but we had some issues. Sorry about that. Still, please keep sending us your events that we can communicate them. Just email us to hello@lakelifeweekend.com, and we will put them on the map here for you. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. I don't want to keep this much longer from our interview part. Now enjoy Karen Terry from the University of Minnesota Extension with our interview. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great weekend ahead. See you in Vegas. Welcome to our interview part. I'm here with Karen Terry. Hi, Karen.
Hello.
She is from the University of Minnesota Extension.
Correct.
And it's not a program, it's a college.
Yes, it's its own entity within the university.
And before we dive into your program that you're bringing to Detroit Lakes, the Aqua Chautauqua.
Right.
Actually coming up next week on August 15th, Thursday evening, 5 to 8 p.m. Before we talk about all this and the stations and what we can expect and what we can learn over there, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's Karen? Where you're from? And what are you doing at the University of Minnesota Extension?
Okay. So let's see. Who's Karen? I grew up in Indiana. And I always had a little bit of an interest in nature and outdoors, but I grew up in the big city of Indianapolis. And so I decided I was going to pursue something like this for my work. And I got a degree in natural resources, and I moved to Minnesota. And I got a job with the DNR, the Department of Natural Resources. Pretty much, yeah,
okay.
Right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that for a long time. And we did research and some restoration work. And I realized that if I really wanted to make a difference, it should be in education. Because if we don't teach people how to do things better, they're going to keep making the mistakes over and over and over again. So we were doing restorations, but people just kept creating the problems. So it's really about education. So Extension came along and had a job opening as an educator in water resources, and I said, that's me. I'm going to do that. So that was 2006.
Okay, and restoration, what is that?
Could be a lot of different things. When I was with the DNR, we did stream restorations. So In a lot of places, we've straightened our stream channels where they should be wiggly, right? They should be curvy. We've straightened them. If we want them to be healthy systems, we need to make them curvy again. We also did a lot of dam removals, and the DNR is still doing that. It's wonderful work. We'll see that at Dunton Locks Park. We'll talk about that because
Dam removal?
Yeah.
What is a dam removal? Like a artificial dam or like the beaver dam?
Artificial dams. So dams that people have made for whatever reasons, right? Flood control, generating power. In Dunton Locks, it was to create a lock so they could move the boats from one lake to the other, coming up overland.
I have two examples, actually. I think in Breckenridge, the Odyssey River,
Yes.
they are in the process of making it curvy again,
Right?
right?
Yes.
And why did you say, or like, what does that mean? I'm a consumer. I'm not a land expert. So, what is damaging if we make it straight? The flow, obviously, or what else?
The flow, but also the habitat. So there's a lot of physics involved in rivers and the shape of rivers. And so we can very easily predict what shape a river will have based on the slope of the terrain, right? Here in the Red River Valley, it's pretty flat, right? So our rivers in flatland, the rivers make big, wide curves.
Really? Because of the flatness?
Because of the flatness, you're right, and because of the physics. So water runs that way because of resistance against the banks. And so when water, you have to visualize this. So water curves around a bend to the left, and when it's curving through that bend, it's constantly eroding and eating that out.
Oh, sure.
And eventually it cuts through and goes straight for a very short distance, and then it starts to curve again. So it's constantly changing. So rivers are stable. A healthy river is stable, but not static. So it's changing course all the time.
Really?
So not only left and right across the land, but also up and down. So you have deep pools and shallow riffles and deep pools and shallow riffles. When we make it go straight, we don't get that. When it goes straight, it's all the same. All one type of habitat.
So we used to make them straight in the past, let's say in the 60s or 70s. But now we are realizing that it is better to make them natural again?
Exactly. To let them, it's meandering. That's the term, is meandering rivers. So we want them to meander so that they are more natural and they aren't as likely to flood or do as much damage when they flood, because just like if you are going to walk to the ice cream shop from here, if you can walk straight from point A to point B, it takes less energy than if you have to go down the street and turn the corner and turn the corner and turn the corner. It takes more energy. It's the same way with a river. If it has to go through a lot of curves and turns, it burns up energy, which in a river is a good thing because we want that energy burned up before it hits the next town or the next farm field and creates a big blowout. So it burns up energy.
Interesting. And then I know of a lock or dam in Barnesville.
Yes.
That was converted into those steps.
Yeah, a series of rapids.
And it looks now, I think it's 3 years later or at least 2, and now the plants have been growing.
Yeah.
Excuse me, in between the rocks or whatever. It looks really pretty.
Nice.
So do you know about that project?
I do, yes.
So what is different, better, instead of that dam, which was also kind of fascinating in the winters when it was all iced up? I mean, I've seen it year round. So
yes.
What is better or different with the dam and the steps?
I don't remember what that dam was for. I think maybe it was flood control. I don't really remember.
But it had a pond there. I don't know why.
There you go.
Pond next to the lake.
Right.
Eagle Lake. I don't know.
Yeah, so we didn't need that, right? So here's what happens when we have a dam. Number one, the fish and other aquatic organisms can't move upstream. They can move downstream. They can fall over the dam and go downstream, but they can't migrate upstream.
Right.
So it cuts off that habitat that's upstream. So we use the term connectivity. We want to restore the connectivity of the river. So how connected it is from upstream to downstream, also to its floodplain, right? So left and right, but upstream, downstream. So we used to think that things like mussels, like clams, that they didn't move. They do move.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're slow, right? But they do move. If the place that they are becomes unsuitable, they will start moving. They have what they call a foot. It's this fleshy thing. They protrude and they clamp onto the substrate and they pull themselves forward. So they can move. Yeah. But the other really important thing about dams, well, lots of important things, but another thing is that they stop the sediment. So when you have a dam, before the dam, the water's coming fast and it carries sediment with it, which is natural. There's always sediment moving through a river. When you put a dam in, the water slows down. When the water slows down, the sediment, the dirt, all settles out.
Sure.
So it fills up that reservoir. And if it's a flood control dam or whatever it is, that becomes an unusable space then. And because then downstream we don't have the sediment going over where it should, then it creates erosion downstream because we say water is sediment hungry. Oh. It
grabs new one.
It grabs new sediment, right? So it's the stream banks, and then you get a lot of erosion because it's just taking what it needs. I always use the example of a glass of tea. I make a glass of tea and I put sugar in it and I stir it up and it all goes into solution. I think, oh, it's not sweet enough. I put in more, and I put in more until it won't go into solution anymore. That's sort of what happens with the river. So it's carrying this.
Really?
Right. It's carrying organic matter with it, and because it has all this energy and it has this moving water, but then there's a sudden slowdown because of a dam. So when it has that sudden slowdown, then it drops all that organic matter out. So then when it gets down below the dam, it's going fast again.
Yeah.
Right. So then it picks up more.
Huh. So there's a professor in you, an educator. So very interesting. But local stories or examples, I guess.
Yes.
Many more in Becker County and Otter County, I suppose. Tell us just a little something about it's the campus in Morris.
Correct.
And it's a University of Minnesota full campus. They offer degrees in what they all offer?
Yeah, liberal arts, and they also are very big in sustainability. So they have lots of projects going on all the time around sustainability with natural resources, but also with how do we do better not creating so much waste. Right? I was recently at a meeting there, and we had cookies and drinks, and at the end of the meeting they said, everything, all of your plates, all of your silverware, all of that goes in this compost bin right here. Everything, it was planned that way. And we don't see that very many places, and we need to see that in more places.
Okay. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
So the extension college, or what exactly is that?
Well, extension so there's extension in most states, maybe all states, I should know that, but because the University of Minnesota is a land grant institution. So it was created by a stroke of the pen many, many years ago to say, we are committing the state of Minnesota to do research and provide education for the citizens of the state.
Okay.
And so Extension's role is to take all of the findings of the research that happens at the university and beyond the university, but to take that information and to bring it to the people outside of the campus, beyond the campus. So we're the connectors that say, hey, there's all this new stuff being learned. How do we apply that to people's lives?
So you extend the knowledge to the people.
Exactly.
Is this extension campus or college, is that only in Morris? Or all over the state? All over the state.
Yes. Okay. Big organization.
So the University of Minnesota Extension Division or college, like you're connecting all the knowledge gathered and inventions or scientific research collections.
Yes.
You bring it to the people, and that brings you to Detroit Lakes.
Right. Well, and it goes the opposite way, too. So when we work with communities and we identify needs, then we can go back to the university and say, people need to know more about this, and that they can find a way to get those answers.
Okay. Very interesting. I really didn't know. I mean, obviously, extension stands for to extend.
Right.
Maybe my lack of English as a mother language. But okay, very clear, very good.
How about 4-H? Do you know about 4-H?
That is for like kids.
It is. Yeah.
It's the program with the animal and agricultural science.
Yeah, and a lot of other things too, right?
Okay.
There's some creativity and art and all sorts of things, but that's part of extension.
Oh.
Master gardeners, master naturalists, a lot of work with crops and ag, all extension.
Oh, so 4-H is a division of the University of Minnesota Extension.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that one.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. So tell us about Aqua Chautauqua. I understand it's your 4th event. There has been 2 in Fergus Falls in the past and already 1 in Detroit Lakes. And you bring an expo kind of event to Dunton Locks, right next to the DNR headquarters for Becker County. And tell us about what to expect. What are you doing there?
Okay, so what to expect? I don't like the phrase water festival, but it's the best I can come up with. But the differences are that we really push hard for everything to be hands-on, interactive, something that people come and do. So we're setting up about 20 different learning stations where people can come and talk to experts about all things water. So it's about drinking water. It's about what kind of fish we have in our lakes around here. So the DNR will be there and they'll have a great big fish tank with all sorts of native fish in it that they can talk to you about. We have lots of things for kids to do, but we also have a lot of things that are really geared toward adults. So it's a nice mix of things.
So it's not just a kids' party event and a carnival. It's really something where I'm supposed to learn something.
Absolutely.
And I want to come there to get educated.
Yes.
And that's why it's also 5 to 8, so that I can come there after work.
Right.
Okay. And you had a few hundred people in the past, so the goal is 300 to 400 people.
Right.
But it's not too busy.
Right.
Because it's flowing carefully or slowly enough for people to engage at each booth. You said 20 stations, so what? I mean, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
So let's walk through those stations a little bit.
Sure. Okay, so let me tell you about a few of them. The Becker County Museum will be there. They're going to be talking about fishing memories. So looking back through the years, how did people fish? What did they catch? I'm sure I haven't seen what they have yet, but I'm sure they have some amazing pictures of the fish that people caught in the past. So they're always a lot of fun to talk to because they've got our history, right? Yeah. That's where we came from. So history there. Also, I'm just throwing out some random ones here, but stormwater. Where does the water go that comes off of our house?
Like 2 days ago.
Like 2 days ago. Exactly. Where's it going to go?
Yeah.
So we need to start paying more attention to where our stormwater goes, because when the water flows across the surface of the land, it picks up dirt and pollution with it, and it carries it to our lakes and rivers. So we got to be smarter about how do we control that? How do we stop it before it gets to the lakes and rivers? We are going to have a stream model there, which is a kind of a sandbox, but we have a stream flowing through it, so everyone can get their hands in there and play engineer and move things around and see how the river reacts when we put in a dam, or if we make it go straight, or if we build a lot of houses on the shoreline, what happens. So people get to get their hands in there. We always have the kids want to get their hands in and the adults put their hands behind their backs, but after a while they get in there, but it's good for everybody. We'll have a video booth where people can sit down and tell us their watershed story. Whatever their water story is, we want to hear it. So if people are brave, feeling comfortable in front of the camera, we want them to sit down and tell us their story. We'll have some really not very fun topic, but something really important to people who don't live in town is septic systems. We have septic systems. Are we maintaining them well? People sort of a lot of times don't understand how they work, but we need to figure that out so we know if we're managing them right or not. So we'll have a station on that. We'll have one on bugs and the macroinvertebrates that live in the water, so people can get their hands on them and touch them and find out what's in there and what it means for the water, because what bugs are there, just like what fish are there, gives us an indication about if things are healthy or not healthy in our lakes and rivers. So they can talk to the experts about that. So all kinds of great things going on.
Yeah, it sounds like really fascinating, and I'm really curious. I'm hoping to be able to actually see what's going on. So those experts, you mentioned there's the DNR. Who all is involved? Like, is it all university employees or professors?
No, I've got lots of great partners helping on this. So we've got DNR. There's also Pollution Control Agency, Soil and Water Conservation Districts, Pelican River Watershed District. I always worry that I'm forgetting someone. Of course, the Becker County Museum. They're all going to have stuff there. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anybody. Extension will be there with 4-H. Also, we have Ben Page is coming from St. Paul. He has a project going on at the university where he's looking at using satellites to be able to measure and monitor what's happening with water quality by using satellite data. So he'll have that, a display set up there where people can look at that. So that'll be a fun one to see. A lot of these I haven't seen yet either, so I'm excited.
Yeah, no, it sounds really, and we don't want to share it all at once. So this is your full-time role or job to actually communicate outside of the university.
Right.
So what is it all that you are actually the expert in?
Well, my role is water resources in general, but my background is very much in streams and rivers, and especially how they move. So if I were going to pick a title, I'd say I'm a fluvial geomorphologist.
Oh, okay.
But really, I'm an educator around water issues all the way around. But rivers are what I know best.
Do you still teach a few classes then?
I do. So with Extension, a lot of what we do is sort of on-demand teaching. So like in May, I did some work with Itasca County. They're creating a volunteer base where those folks are going to work with others on restoring shorelines. So they had me come and teach those folks about restoring shorelines. So I teach in that capacity. I also teach a class every semester, an online class, really for water resources, natural resources professionals. So soil and water conservation district staff and that sort of thing, so that they get a broader understanding of what it takes to do their job, because most of us come out of college with that natural resources science background, but we don't understand how do you work with people. And we've got to work with people, because I always say natural resources problems aren't problems without the people. It's the people that are creating the problems. So if we remove the people from the equation, it would all be fine. So we've got to work with people to get some change going.
Okay. So what is the biggest red flag? Like if you say, and we are the ones polluting. Society, us actually intruding into nature. So if you look at it from the nature standpoint, we are damaging nature by default.
Right.
We're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to put tar here.
Right.
No, we did, and we have to, because that's actually what we do. We live, and we have our communities. But what can we do? What can we do easily as a citizen or a resident, a community member, to prevent? Is that like an easy 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, I'd say
flush the toilet less often, or
yeah, that's part of it, right? I mean, for years we've said what you should do is not let the water run while you brush your teeth. And it's, I'm not sure that's making a really big difference, but every little bit helps. I would say, for number one, I would like people to pay attention to what water runs off of their property and if it's clean or not, right? In a lot of communities, we're seeing the storm drains on the street. They're labeling them. They're stenciling them. So it says drains to lake or drains to river. So it makes people think about, when I throw my garbage out here, whatever runs off of my driveway is going down there, and it's going right into that lake over there that I really love. So they start making that connection. So it's really about raising the awareness of where does that water go?
And what and
the
consequence with adding to the water.
Right. So it's really twofold. It's quantity and it's quality. So we want to keep as much water where it starts, right? If it rains, I want to hold it on that piece of property when it rains, right? We have rain gardens. So look at your piece of property and say, can I hold the water? That's for volume, but it's also for quality, because, again, when that water runs and it picks up everything that's in its path, like antifreeze that dripped out of somebody's car or leaves that came off of the trees, we want to keep that from moving. And it's all those hard surfaces that you mentioned. It's the impervious surfaces. The rain used to fall on prairie, on forests, on open land, and it would soak in or be taken up by the trees or evaporating off. But
now it runs off, and then it's too much.
Yes, too much and too fast.
Yeah.
So we've made the water move really fast.
Yeah.
It's similar in some ways to straightening that stream. We make that water go faster. Because we have this idea that we should make the water go away. Well, I don't want water coming through the roof of my house any more than anybody else. But I can be smart about, okay, if it's not going to come, I'm moving it off of this space where my house is, but where can I hold it?
Contain it, yeah.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned a rain garden, and I was thinking of a rainforest, which is obviously wrong. So what's a rain garden?
Yeah, good question. It's just a garden, but instead of being level with the ground, it's recessed down into the ground a little bit, like 6 inches. So it's a shallow basin.
Or like a pond. Like it's lower so the water can, okay.
Yeah, and you have to be strategic about where you situate it because you want to catch the water.
The runoff.
Yeah, so if you have a downspout coming off of your house, you might look at that downspout and say, where does the water go? And is there a place that I can build a rain garden to intercept that water before it gets to the curb, before it gets into the lake?
Like a buffer zone.
Yeah. But it's a basin. But when they're built right, the water doesn't sit in there, so you're not creating a pond because people don't want mosquitoes, right? Fair enough. But if they're built right, the water soaks in within 24 hours because it's only 6 inches deep. So you have to build them in places where the soil is permeable. So it will, if you had solid clay, the water's not going to soak in.
Right.
But if you have permeable soils, the water will soak in.
And that is like just earth, like black dirt or something?
Yeah, and it depends. So some areas have sand naturally, then it's going to soak in, right?
Sure.
Some areas have clay naturally. So then if you really wanted a rain garden in that area, you'd have to amend the soil. You'd have to dig it out, mix in some sand, maybe some tiny gravel to loosen that up.
Right. Okay. Huh. And do you see that happen by many people?
We're seeing it more and more all the time. And we're seeing it happen in cities. So a lot of cities are starting to look at how they manage it on their own land. Mm-hmm. So in their parks and on public land in the city. So here, Detroit Lakes has several rain gardens around town on public and private land, right? Fergus Falls, which is my closest community, they have done several now. And it's not a very the science isn't really solid on it because every situation is different, and so sometimes we build them and they don't work the way we want, and then we tweak them a little bit. So people have to be comfortable with that it's not just here's the recipe, throw it together, it's going to work. You have to be able to play with it a little bit, but anybody that can make any kind of a garden could make a rain garden.
Okay, sure. And what's like the one-on-one or the easiest way how we can, as a user, or if we play in the lakes, what should we avoid? Like an easy one that actually is so obvious that we may not think about anymore. Or like, how can we protect our lake more? I mean, obviously, I don't want to drip the oil of the engine in there, or like maybe not fueling up my. Or is fuel that I spill, is it damaging drastically, or like was that impact?
Yeah, well, it's cumulative, right? So if you do it, it's not terrible, but then the next person does it and the next person does it, and it just accumulates to a point where it becomes detrimental. So I think fueling is important, right? We should do that away from the edge of the water. I think in the winter now we see a lot of maybe more ice fishing than we used to, and a lot of stuff gets left on the lake that we don't want on the lake, right? So people should be more responsible about if they pack it in there, they should pack it out of there. So that would be a big deal.
Removing any kind of it's
everything.
Waste.
Yeah, it's waste, and we should not leave it laying on the ice because when the ice melts, then it's in the lake.
Right.
And I would say aquatic invasive species, which we'll talk about at Aqua, Chautauqua too, but that's always a big thing, right? That we need to be very careful about when we move from one lake to another lake, that we're not moving some kind of zebra mussel or plant fragments that are going to wreck the next lake. I think sometimes we get the idea that all of the lakes are contaminated and it's all lost, but it's not true. It's really a very small number of lakes that really are infested with some kind of aquatic invasive species. So we can still prevent a lot of that, right? We're buying time until we figure out how to manage them, but we can buy time better if everybody helps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I see that. Speaking of invasive species, it's not necessarily water, but is it fizzles? The one with the purple flower, and then is it called a fizzle? The ones that are pokey? I see them all over lately.
I don't know fizzles.
No?
Pokey. Like they have a burr on them, a round burr?
No, it's not a fizzle. It's the leaf, and they have those needles kind of to it. It hurts. I thought it was a fizzle.
Oh, now I just lost it.
But you know which one I mean? And
nettles. Nettles?
I don't know. They have purple flowers, and then they have like a... No? Oh, I don't know. Okay, sorry.
I'm not tracking with you. Sorry.
No,
I was thinking nettles, but it has a really tiny flower that you don't really even see.
No.
Nettles burn. When you go through them, they burn.
No. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't even know the German name by now. Distel in German. It doesn't help.
Yeah, my German's not that good.
No. But I see him. I've never seen him. So, and I walk the dog. We have Oscar. I walk him by the fields, and I think they're an invasive species. Actually, they're not native.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Thistles.
I'm sorry.
Thistles. Yes.
Thistles. Okay.
You were very close. I don't know why I wasn't getting that.
Sorry about that.
I was trying to think of something more exotic.
No.
Yeah, thistles.
I'm sorry, I didn't even know that. Thistles, I thought it was thistles. Okay, good.
That's close.
They're all over now.
Yes.
Have they been like exploding? Or do you know anything about that?
I don't really have any data to back it up. It seems to me like they're a lot more prevalent than they used to be. It's true for dandelions, I think, too. In the spring, dandelions are just solid.
Right.
We've always had, for a very long time, we've had dandelions, but it seems to me like they've gotten much more abundant.
Yeah.
For dandelions, we really like them for the pollinators, and that maybe is somewhat true for the thistles as well, but we have, I don't know how many kinds of thistles, probably 3, 4, 5 at least that I know of. And we have some native thistles, but they are not very abundant. But the non-native ones are very abundant. And by law, we have to control them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I got a notice from the city that I've cut them down.
Oh no!
So that's how I know everything about that. No, and I did cut them down.
Oh,
so I hope it's not my fault that they're all over. No, I outed myself. No. But I see them on the fields lately by Burgers, and I've never seen so many. So, and how do you? Now they're in the field. Nobody is cutting them down, and they fly the semen or whatever and seeds, and I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, there's
nothing we can do. So are they gonna grow? Like, what do you think? Is it like a cycle? No, circle. Are they gonna go away again in like 10 years, or how is that?
I don't think they're gonna go away.
Okay.
But the only way that we will get rid of some of them is if people start controlling them, which goes back to the counties. I think it's county-based that they have the authority to force people to control them.
Well, I want them to force the minimal maintenance roads where they all are, because that's where the production is going on, and then they go to my lawn, so it's a devil's circle all of a sudden.
That's right.
I mean, they need to do it too. They're gonna just tell me to watch it. Like they are the originator, maybe.
Yes, exactly. And so I have a lot of feelings about things like thistles, right? Because some of them are biennials and some of them are perennials. So biennials, they make a rosette the first year, and then the second year they shoot up a stalk, and then they go to seed. So those, if you just cut them, keep them from going to seed, they're going to go away. If everybody did it, right? But the perennial ones aren't going to go away.
That is annual? Perennial means every year?
It means they come back.
Yeah.
That same plant grows every year, and it still goes to seed and makes more plants, but that plant survives the winter and comes back up. So just cutting it off and keeping it from going to seed isn't going to get rid of it. So I have this love-hate relationship with chemicals for treating those things, because it's not good for the water, not good for the environment, not good for the human, right? But how are we going to get rid of the perennial ones if we don't use it? But it's so easy to control the biennials by just keeping them from going to seed. If we do it in time, we have to do it before they start flowering.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. 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 I don't think we want to open the Roundup topic.
No, let's
okay.
not.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like using it either. But
Yeah.
Do you have natural? Like I researched that actually the other month. Was it vinegar, water, and then just a little bit of vinegar?
Salt, I think, usually.
Yeah, this
Epsom salt.
Epsom salt,
Yes.
and then a little bit of dish soap.
Yes, to make it stick, right? That's the surfactant that makes it stick to the plant. So Roundup has a surfactant in it. So that's how it sticks to the plant long enough to do its damage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've heard of people using that. I don't know how effective it is, but
it was so and so. I tried it here on the thistles, and
Yes.
it was not. I just wanted to have the least impact,
right.
and but yeah, it wasn't as aggressive, I guess, or as good.
Okay.
It did start working. You saw it like getting brownish and dying, but like I thought maybe you have a different secret for me.
Well, the other thing that I do sometimes is like in my driveway, I have a gravel driveway and the weeds all come up and I don't want them there. So I take a tarp and spread it out over that, and then the hot sun cooks them, right? You have to be willing to put up with a tarp laying in your driveway for a while.
Yeah.
So it's not everybody's solution, but it's a non-chemical way to do it.
Okay. And then they're dying through the root.
Yeah. If you leave it on there long enough, it will cook, especially if it's in the sun.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Like what, a week?
Depends on how hot it is.
Oh, okay.
For me, it's longer than a week.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
maybe 2. 2 weeks would probably do it in July and August.
It's kind of like putting a tent up for your kid, and then the grass is all dead afterwards.
Exactly.
Like it's all yellow. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Ah, interesting. Yeah. Okay. Like just preventing it from light, and
Well, and the
And then
heat
heat.
from this, so
It
get a
kills
black
it.
tarp.
really,
Yeah.
it just cooks it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have studies or like in part of, because we should be more careful with what we put into the grounds also, because it goes to the water. It's simply, it just always arrives at the groundwater at least.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So
Yeah.
so isn't like all this chemical, I mean, like I'm not a huge fan of it.
Right. I'm not a huge fan of it either. And I think we've kind of gotten stuck in a bad loop where we feel like we need it. And I do on my property. I have plants that I'm controlling that I don't know any other way other than using chemicals.
Just as cautious as we can.
Exactly.
It's always
right.
the mud.
Well, and we have an issue with the Roundup. Sorry, here we go back to Roundup, right? But it's really detrimental in water. It is not approved for use near water because of that surfactant. So that's an oily based thing. So
I heard that it's not supposed to be used too close to the lake.
Right. But now we have all of the Roundup ready crops, and so a lot of Roundup is getting sprayed on, and where is it going? Now we'd like to think that they're spraying it on in the right conditions and that all of it is staying in that field. But I don't think that that's true. So I think we need to be smarter, more cautious about how much and when and where we apply that.
Is it going to dissolve, or like with this thing, or will it be a film on the lake eventually, and then we just touch it? Is it going to go? Like, I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't think that we can predict that yet because this is so new that we have Roundup ready crops and we're using so much of it. I don't think we know where it's going to go.
Yeah, I think it's very frightening, and I actually think we are not questioning enough. We should question so many more things, and just like, oh yeah, we want our popcorn, or we want our, like, we all need it. No, we need to question those things too.
That's right.
Especially, we are so connected to nature here. In Minnesota, we are very, connected state with the outdoors. So we should actually always consider how can we protect it the most, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's look forward to Aqua Chautauqua.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. And 20 stations. I'm really excited.
I am too.
I hope you will have more than 300 attendees. Not too many, but enough to educate, but as little so that everybody gets their chance to experience. And if I may ask one more closing question, what is your what does lake life mean to you? I mean, you live in Fergus Falls, you said, Minnesota, for a long, long time, but what do you like most about the lakes or lake life?
To me, lake life is about the peace and quiet that I can find when I go out on a really still day in a kayak, and I can see the birds and the bugs down in the water and just have a peaceful, rejuvenating time on the water.
Yeah. You kayak.
I do kayak.
Yeah, I like
Never enough.
Never enough?
No.
Very good.
Can I plug our prizes that we're going to give away?
Oh, you have prizes?
We have prizes
I
at
did not
Aqua,
know that.
Chautauqua.
Yes.
This is a big deal because we're giving away a kayak.
Really?
Yes.
No way.
One lucky winner will win that night. So people come and they fill out their bingo card. We have bingo. They go around to all the stations, fill out their bingo card, and then they turn it in. And at 7:45, we're going to draw a winner for the kayak. And then for kids, we have a drawing we have 2 different fishing poles that kids are going to win. So there are good options.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll have some other smaller prizes too. So
cool. And the bingo is depending on the stations, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Each station they go to, there's certain ones on there, and people the educators will sign off on them, and
Okay.
yeah, then they turn it in.
Well, I think now I have to come. No.
I think you do too. Maybe you'll win.
Yeah, very good. Well, I will let somebody else win, that's for sure. But I didn't know that. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So another reason to attend for the kayak experience.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And visiting us here in Perm. And you have a wonderful weekend ahead, and good luck at the event.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, this was already our newest episode of the Lake Life Weekend podcast. We sure hope you enjoyed it. Tune in again next week with another great guest and updates. Always check out our website, lakelifeweekend.com, and if you have some comments, please feel free to email us at hello@lakelifeweekend.com, and you have a wonderful weekend ahead.